My name is Attorney Nix, and this is the Legal Tea with Attorney Nix.
In Nolan's death, and that maybe some of the friends were involved, and there's even this overlay of racism. And the father of one of the friends now says he's considering suing for defamation.
You know them boys don't know how to swim. Mm-hmm.
Oh, really?
Yeah. You throw them in that water. They say, swim, boy, swim. Woo! Learn how to swim, boy. You can't do it. You can't do it, boy. Y'all ain't ever gonna learn how to swim.
And then we started talking about race. And you know how that is. Once you start talking about race, it becomes a whole nother show. So we started talking about race, and then Emmanuel told me that people outside Mississippi need to stop bringing up Mississippi's racial history. He argued that Hollywood has convinced the rest of America that the South is frozen in the past.
Y'all, yes, I have been MIA. I have been missing in action for good reason, because I've been out here fighting a good fight for the people, okay? Do you not see? For the people. But I think that it was important for me to reboot and come out for such a time as this, and here's why. Right now, America is forced to look in the mirror. America is forced to look at horrendous history that involves suspicious deaths of our community, of youth in our community. It is an uncomfortable discussion and conversation that is being held in media spaces, on social media spaces. And I think that the Nolan Wells case just highlights some of the discrepancies and some of the history that has plagued our community as it relates to mysterious deaths and also injustice. And I want to get down to the truth. So let's dig right in.
The Legal Tea with Attorney Nix.
Before we begin, I want us to take a moment of silence for Nolan Wells, his family, and every similarly situated family searching for answers after the unexplained death of someone they love. May God bring Nolan's family peace in the middle of unimaginable grief. May he give them strength with this struggle because it becomes exhausting, courage when the pressure becomes overwhelming, and discernment as they continue searching for the truth. May justice prevail over every personal, political, or institutional agenda that would stand in its way. Because Ephesians 6:12 reminds us that we wrestle not merely against flesh and blood, but against principalities, powers, and spiritual forces of darkness. This struggle is bigger than any one person. It is a struggle against secrecy, indifference, institutional self-protection, and every force that has taught Black families to accept unanswered questions quietly. But today, we will not be quiet.
The Legal Tea with Attorney Nix.
Today, we're going to discuss Nolan Wells, the questions surrounding his death, and the legal methods his family and attorneys are using to uncover the truth. Because prayer and action are not opposites. We pray for strength, and then we do the work. So let's get into this. The first red flag for me in the Nolan Wells case came before the autopsy controversy, before the competing timelines, and before the social media subpoenas. It was the public statement that foul play was not suspected. Nolan's body was reportedly found on July 6th. That same day, the Jackson County Sheriff reportedly stated that no foul play was suspected.
We're looking at this whole case just like we would any other case, and we're going to be as thorough as we can.
Now, Sheriff Ledbetter tells me that even with the autopsy scheduled for tomorrow, he doesn't believe that there were any signs of foul play.
Now let's sit with that for a moment. An 18-year-old black college student travels to a remote Mississippi island with a group of young white people. The group returns. Nolan does not. Then 2 days later, Nolan is found dead. And before the public has seen an autopsy, toxicology reports, a completed digital exam, or a reconciled timeline, they determine that no foul play is suspected. And the question is, based on what? Based on what? That statement is not proof of a cover-up. Let's get that right. It's not proof that Nolan was murdered, and it is not proof that any person who is on the island committed a crime. But it is a legitimate reason to scrutinize the investigation. How did the authorities eliminate or even substantially discount foul play that quickly? Which witnesses have been interviewed? Had the phones been forensically examined? Had every relevant photograph and video been preserved? Had the location data been authenticated? Had investigators reconciled the report gap between Nolan's last known sighting and the boat's departure? Had they even established why Nolan, according to one account, voluntarily remained on a remote island without his phone? Had that account been independently corroborated? Had the autopsy been completed? Had toxicology been completed? What evidence supported that public assurance? What evidence? Now, these are not accusations. These are questions that a competent lawyer should ask when an investigative conclusion appears to arrive before the investigation itself is complete.
The Legal Tea with Attorney Nix.
Now, law enforcement may begin an investigation with a working hypothesis, right? Investigators routinely assess whether a death appears accidental, suicidal, homicidal, natural, or undetermined. However, a working hypothesis is not a final conclusion. In death investigation, cause of death and manner of death are different, folks. The cause describes the physical process that produced the death, such as a drowning, blunt force trauma, or a gunshot wound. However, the manner classifies the circumstances, typically natural, accident, suicide, homicide, or undetermined. And homicide in forensic pathology does not automatically mean murder. It generally means the death resulted from the actions of another person. Criminal responsibility is a separate legal question. And this distinction matters because the independent examination commissioned by Nolan's family reportedly classified his cause and manner of death as undetermined pending further investigation. The independent pathologist said foul play could not be ruled out.
He cannot rule out foul play. That is significant.
That does not establish homicide, but it underscores why the early confidence that these public officials claim to have deserves examination. These are questions that a competent lawyer should ask when an investigative conclusion appears to arrive before the investigation itself is complete. Now, we're not talking about Crump. He is doing an excellent job. Him and his team shot out to Crump. He has boots on the ground. I'm just saying, generally speaking, any competent lawyer that you hire will ask these types of questions.
The Legal Tea with Attorney Nix.
Why announce that you do not suspect before you can publicly explain what the evidence proves? And before someone says, like, why bring race into this? Because that's been an ongoing trend. Why do we bring race into this? Because history is evidence of why institutional trust must be earned. History does not prove what happened to Nolan Wells, but history explains why Black families in Mississippi cannot be shamed for demanding independent verification. Let's start with Emmett Till. In 1955, 14-year-old Emmett Till was abducted and murdered in Mississippi. His mother, Miss Mamie, refused to let the country hide what had been done to her child. She did not grieve quietly to preserve America's comfort. She forced America to look. And 70 years later, guess what? We're still learning from investigative records connecting to that case. Then let's consider Rasheem Carter. In 2022, Rasheem Carter, a 25-year-old Black man, reportedly told his mother that white men were pursuing him. His family says he sought help from the police. His remains were later found in a wooded area. Authorities initially said that they had no reason to suspect foul play, but when more information emerged, his families and attorneys raised serious questions about the condition and location of his remains and demanded federal involvement. His case is a painful reminder of why an early no foul play narrative cannot become a substitute for a complete investigation. We can't accept this. Then there is Dexter Wade. Dexter Wade's mother reporting him missing in Jackson, Mississippi, and for months she searched for her son. But Dexter had reportedly been struck and killed by an off-duty police officer driving a police vehicle, and authorities buried him in a pauper's grave without notifying his mother. His identification reportedly had been available. His mother was looking for him while government systems already possessed information about his death. This is not ancient history, man. This is not ancient history. This is modern Mississippi. You need more? Well, what about Michael Jenkins and Eddie Parker? In 2023, 6 white Mississippi law enforcement officers entered a home without a warrant and tortured 2 Black men. The officers used racial slurs, assaulted them, shot Michael Jenkins in the mouth, planted evidence, and created a false cover story. These are not social media rumors. The officers eventually pled guilty and received federal sentences. These are not social media rumors, folks. The officers pled guilty and received federal prison sentences. The so-called Goon Squad. That case demonstrates why trust the authorities cannot be the end of the conversation.
The Legal Tea with Attorney Nix.
The answer is not less concern for white victims. The answer is equal urgency for ours. So, Nolan's parents should not just sit down, and neither should we. We need to keep Nolan Wells' name alive. Talk about Nolan on social media. Talk about him during our lunch breaks. Talk about him in our churches. Talk about him in our civic organizations. Make responsible videos. Shared verified reporting. Correct false information. Ask public officials lawful specific questions. Support legitimate rewards for reliable information. Support independent forensic review. Support the family's demands for answers. Why is this? Because Nolan Wells is our son. He is our nephew. He is our brother. And his death deserves the same investigation the same rigor, the same public attention, and the same relentless search for truth that America would demand for any other child. But I want to be precise about what community investigation should mean. Okay? It does not mean threatening witnesses, folks. It does not mean publishing home addresses, folks. It does not mean identifying someone as a murderer without evidence.
The Legal Tea with Attorney Nix.
Question whether the same investigative standard would have been applied if the circumstances were different, and demand documentation where the law permits it. We do not need to manufacture a conclusion. We do not need to manufacture a conclusion. We need to insist upon a process capable of producing a trustworthy one. We can pray and still apply pressure. We can reject threats and still be loud. We can respect due process and still be relentless. We can refuse to accuse without evidence while demanding that every available piece of evidence be preserved, examined, and explained. We will talk about Nolan. We will talk about Nolan. We will talk about Nolan. We will say his name. We will support his parents. We will follow the facts. And we will keep lawful pressure. We will keep our foot on the necks of the system, of every institution responsible for uncovering the truth. Because Nolan Wells' life mattered. Because his family deserves answers. Because we deserve answers. Because Black America will no longer be instructed to grieve quietly when justice requires us to speak. I'm Attorney Nix. This is The Legal Tea, and we'll speak with you at another time.
The Legal Tea with Attorney Nix.